You ready, Ashley? Good evening, everyone. It's time to put on the glasses here. We will call to order the Oxnard City Council Community Services, Public Safety, Housing and Development Committee for March 12, 2024 at 6:45. And Madam Clerk, if we can have a roll call and posting of the agenda, please.
Member Madrigal,
Here.
Member Zaragoza,
Here.
Chair McDonald.
Here.
The agenda for this meeting was posted on the City Hall Bulletin Board on March 5th, 2024.
Thank you very much. If you all rise and join me in saluting the flag of our nation. Please place your hand over heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. That takes us to public comments on items not on the agenda, and this would be for items that are under the purview of this committee, but not agendized. And I have no requests to speak. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers?
Chair McDonald, there's no public speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Okay, thank you very much. Takes us to item C, consent calendar. Approval of the minutes, and the recommendation is that the Community Services, Public Safety, Housing, and Development Committee approve the minutes of the February 27th, 2024 regular meeting as presented. And do the members have any questions or comments about the minutes?
No questions.
I don't either.
Okay, any comments from the public on this item?
Chair McDonald, there's no public comment virtually or in person for this item.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the committee?
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, Madam Clerk, we have a motion by Member Madrigal, a second by Mayor Zaragoza. Please vote.
Motion carries 3-0. Thank you.
Thank you. Takes us to item number D, Community Development Department. The subject is a study session to provide direction on advancing accessory dwelling units, ADUs, regulations authorized under California Assembly Bill 1033. The recommendation is that the Community Services, Public Safety, Housing and Development Committee, 1, receive and file the information provided in the staff report, and 2, recommend the City Council not implement AB 1033 program. And pursuant to Measure M, there was a pre-recorded message on the city's YouTube channel. And Mr. Pengilly is here if the committee have any questions or comments. And Madam Clerk, are there any requests to speak on this item?
Chair McDonald, there's no public speakers virtually or in person for this item.
And this is scary because I haven't messed this up yet. I'm batting 1,000, so I probably jinxed myself here.
Just did.
Okay, do the members have any questions or comments from Mr. Pengilly?
Yeah, Jeff, good presentation, by the way, on the ADUs. And the question I have is, in 25 words or less, not 25 words, can you talk about the advantages and disadvantages? Because we talked about AB 1033 and then also SB 9. But I noticed there was quite a few advantages and disadvantages of going ahead with, for example, with 1033 and also with SB 9.
Yeah, I'll be as brief as I can. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, Councilmember Madrigal. Jeff Pengilly, Community Development Director. There are, the best we can estimate, some potential advantages and some potential disadvantages. It is fair to say that some of these are speculative, and we've tried to be as clear as we can in our staff report that, where our assumptions were and where we're making, just educated guesses. So we're not trying to mislead anybody in this staff report, but there's a lot of unknowns to this. Potential advantages, and just for background, this Assembly Bill 1033 would allow for ADUs to be subdivided through a condominium map process and sold independently. Currently, there's only very few exceptions where a condominium can be, I'm sorry, an ADU can be sold independently, and it's generally for nonprofits, and there's a 45-year restricted income, lower income restriction on the property. It's very limited in scope, so functionally, they cannot be sold independently now. By allowing them to be sold independently, potentially that could put more lower income for sale units on the market. It may, thereby create some more opportunities for lower price point homes for purchase. That may free up if people downsize and move to the smaller units, aging in place, so to speak. That could potentially create, again, this is speculative, free up some of the larger single-family homes for people with growing families to move into. There is speculation that it could incentivize people to build an ADU. In other words, if there's more profit by going through the subdivision process, turning it into a condominium and selling it, and that assumption is a bit speculative, but if that's the case, there's the potential that that could potentially drive more people to build ADUs. We are finding that there's not we're not having a hard time finding people who want to build ADUs at the moment. They're being submitted at a very rapid pace. It's continuing to exponentially grow. And then potentially, if a main house and its ADU are separated through a condominium map and sold separately, even though the main house would be worth less on a smaller lot, the combination of sale of both the ADU and the main house could potentially yield a higher assessed value for the two properties together. That could potentially lead to a small increase in property tax paid for those now two parcels. And that's really going to depend on how many people take advantage of that, if it's any meaningful amount of additional revenue to the city. Sorry, I'm way over 25 words, but.
No, but it's important because I know you're giving us all this information. One of the things that also, it's there, you're probably going to mention that, is that mortgage lenders are going to have to agree with that, and also the lien holders.
Yeah, and touching briefly, I promise, on some of the potential disadvantages. That's one of the main ones is anyone carrying a mortgage cannot subdivide without the lender's approval. And many lenders would not be able to approve that and would just require them to pay it off. That means getting a new loan on what is now a condominium, likely to be more complex and more costly.
And if it did happen, then who's going to be first and who's going to be second in case of
Correct. There's, the California Association of Realtors came out against adoption of this, and, they have a lot of interesting points, some of them made here in the staff report, including ownership speculation as to the form of ownership is not restricted. In other words, is there any reason why somebody couldn't take ownership as a timeshare or other type of ownership? So there's those concerns which are we didn't put in our staff report. There's a large number of potential disadvantages, lack of affordability restrictions, potential concerns with parking. If you're purchasing an ADU that wasn't required to have parking.
And you said something really important. Parking is going to be unbelievable. Where are people going to park? Under SB 9, they said it could go up to a fourplex and maybe 4 parkings. But, they have children, they have teenagers, and have, I don't see how in the world, where are we going to park? I think it's really an important.
Yeah, there's no owner occupancy requirement under AB 1033, but under SB 9, if I'm correct, Joe, there is a owner occupancy requirement. And the staff report explains that if you were to purchase an ADU that didn't have any parking, that could exacerbate a situation because to purchase something, it's probably more expensive than renting. Again, that's speculative, but there could be a tendency for more housing density in those situations and a higher demand for parking. Admittedly, that's speculative, but that's one of the things we mentioned in the staff report.
Okay, I know there's a lot more, and because we have, you had a pre-recorded presentation, but I just didn't want you to go through the whole presentation because those things are really relevant information that the public needs to know. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Member Montreal, any comments?
Just briefly, I know this is speculative, and you probably won't have a true answer, but just in case, we go with the recommended action and say 2 years down the road, we no longer have an option and the state just throws AB 1033 at us. I know it's going to create chaos at the beginning, but how or do we even have a plan on how to deal with all of this?
Thank you for that question, and a very astute question. You're reading the tea leaves on what may very well happen in the near future. So we would have to, there's some speculation on the pros and cons, but what's for sure going to happen is the AB 1033 subdivision process is a much more complex process for homeowners to go through. There's the formation of an HOA, the creation of CC&Rs, and the subdivision map process. City staff would have to spend a lot of time rewriting certain city code sections related to subdivisions, and it would take a lot of staff time just to develop the legislative backbone to do this. And so the application process would take longer to go through, even though we're processing them and doing our due diligence. A subdivision takes longer than an ADU to approve. There's public hearing process and other things. We could conceivably write a shortened something like a parcel map waiver or other considerations, but we would first look to other cities that have implemented it and see what the best practices are. And we intend to keep track of this and see what other cities are doing and listen to our residents. If there has been no expressed demand for this thus far, we'll keep listening and see if there's an expressed interest. And if interest groups have done more research and can provide more data and background as to why it's a good idea, we'll look to our colleagues and our peers in other jurisdictions and try to get the best information possible.
Thank you very much.
I guess my only comments, and you touched on some of it about the property tax increments, and for just a quick refresher for people, if you don't understand property taxes, the assessor's office looks at the total square footage of the lot and then the improvements on that lot, and that's how they value the tax increments to come forward. Well, if you build an ADU on a house or on a lot and then allow it to split away, you're gonna lower the tax increment on the original property. You're gonna probably replace it with the tax increment on the new property. But then there's other issues in there, like we have to do a lot line adjustment, we have to do a lot of other things involved in that. And I'm not sure who's gonna pay for that, and it's probably gonna be, my favorite expression, I love hearing all the time, is an unfunded mandate, where we get stuck doing all this and we don't get compensated for our effort. And right now, when developers come in and do lots and developments and everything, they pay for all that. And I'm not seeing this happen. So we may break even on property taxes, we may make a little bit more generally, but I want to remind people that for every dollar of property tax that gets collected, the city of Oxnard gets about 8% of that dollar. So we get about 8 cents off of every dollar of property tax. That's not very much return, and I'm not doing this to, make money on people's backs, but there is a cost to doing all this, and the vast majority of the property tax goes to the schools and the county and other groups, and we're kind of the lowest denominator in that. So I just don't see this as a win-win in any way, shape, or form, other than creating a lot of new work for staff and a lot of convoluted hoops that we'll have to jump through. So I tend to not be in favor of this, to be perfectly honest. So, I would make a motion that we not forward this to city council, or if we do forward it to city council, we recommend that city council not opt in on this process, that we stay with the process we have.
And how about 1033, shouldn't we recommend not to approve,
That would be my motion, yes.
not to approve?
Isn't
Okay.
that the staff recommendation?
I'm sorry?
Isn't that the staff recommendation?
Staff recommendation?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. I'll second that.
okay.
Any,
Madam Clerk, we have a motion and a second. Please vote.
Chair McDonald, I have a motion by Chair McDonald, and this is to approve staff's recommendation
Yes.
as listed on the
Yeah,
report,
I'm sorry, I
correct?
was being rather verbose. I could have just said approve staff's recommendation.
Thank you.
Been done with
So, yes, so I have a motion by Chair McDonald, and I have a second by Member Zaragoza.
Yes.
correct.
Thank you. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, committee.
Thank you.
Thank
Jeff.
you. Next report is from the Housing Department, and it's the 2020 Annual Action Plan Amendment and Community Development Block Grant CARES, C-A-R-E-S, Act. And the recommendation is that the Community Services, Public Safety, Housing, and Development Committee recommend that the City Council, one, conduct the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, also called HUD, public hearing regarding the fiscal year 2020-2021 Annual Action Plan Amendment for the CARES Act. Two, approve the fiscal year 2020-2021 Annual Action Plan Amendment CARES Act. Three, authorize the city manager and his designees to incorporate the amended grant allocations into the 2020-2021 Annual Action Plan Amendment CARES Act and authorize the budget appropriations to fund the administration and projects. Four, authorize the city manager and his designees to execute the required documents to submit the 2020-2021 amended Annual Action Plan CARES Act to the United States Department of Housing, also called HUD, and Housing and Urban Development, HUD. And five, authorize the city manager and his designees to execute all of the agreements necessary for the implementation of the Annual Action CARES Plan or CARES Act amendment. And pursuant to Measure M, there was a pre-recorded presentation on the city's YouTube channel. And Madam Clerk, do we have any requests to speak on this item?
Chair McDonald, there's no public speakers virtually or in person for this item.
Woo-hoo, I got it correct all the time tonight, so I'm proud of myself.
Was it 1,000 points?
Yeah. Okay, we do have staff here, Mr. Ramirez. Do the members have any questions for Mr. Ramirez?
Yeah, I just, what I read, and I hope I'm correct here, that, what's the $3 million for United Way? Is that number one, and then the other unallocated of $1 million for remaining dollars and $300,000 for rental assistance? Three items. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Thank you, sir. Emilio Ramirez, Housing Director. First, the CARES Act is responsive to the COVID pandemic. Mm-hmm. I say that because the eligible uses for these funds are alike the regular eligible uses for CDBG, except for that they have to be in response to the COVID pandemic. Mm-hmm. As we know, the COVID pandemic is over, and yet we have funding that has to be responsive to the COVID pandemic. Okay, so it's a situation where we have to be careful about how we continue to use these funds. One of the eligible uses, well, first of all, the CARES Act in response to the COVID pandemic was always significantly about providing shelter or housing to the otherwise unhoused or homeless population. So the proposal that we have in front of you is to allocate $300,000, not $3 million, but $300,000 of the overall $3 million allocation from the CARES Act to United Way for them to use as part of their landlord incentive program.
Yeah. Okay.
They have an existing landlord incentive program. We have allocated funding to it that allows a person to use that program to effectively move into a new unit. Whether they do that because of a Section 8 voucher or some other way, then this allows that unit to be more amenable, if you will, to a person, otherwise person that is looking for housing. So that's what the proposal is like. It is an existing program with United Way. At its inception, you may remember that the city also contributed funding towards that program, which the city staff and United Way worked together on thinking up the program. So this is a contribution to that same program.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
That's it?
Yeah.
Member Monaco, any comments or questions?
No comments. Thank you.
Okay, I really have no comments or questions for you, so what would be the pleasure of the committee?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, Madam Clerk, we have a motion to move approval of the recommended action by Mayor, second by Member Madrigal. Please vote.
Thank you. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent. Takes us to item E, items for future agendas.
None for me.
None at this time.
None for me. Takes us to adjournment. Wish I could speak English. We are adjourned. Have a good evening all. Thank you very